Let me start with a scene you probably lived through, especially if you have worked in procurement, supply chain, or you are an engineer waiting for a PO. It's late evening in a global manufacturing company. A plant manager calls and says, if we don't get 500 industrial sensors in 30 days, the line stops. Procurement jumps in. Emails start flying. Vendor portals open. Someone forwards contract PDF. Someone pulls last year's POs from ERP. Finance asks, why is this 12% higher than before? Then compliance jumps in. This supplier ships from a region with export restrictions. Legal says clause review will take time. And the plant manager doesn't care about any of that. They care about uptime. Now, if you are a Gen AI developer watching, you will see the pattern. This is not a chatbot problem. It's a multi-system, multi-constraint decision problem. If you are a procurement leader or a VP, CTO watching, you'll see something else. Hidden risk everywhere. Pricing risk, compliance risk, supplier risk, yet decisions happen under pressure. So in this video, I'll walk you through ProcureMind operating system, a production-ready agentic AI procurement architecture, not a POC, an operational blueprint that can automate procurement workflows in MNCs while staying compliant, auditable, and safe. All right, everyone, welcome back to the AI Innovate Hub. Today, I'm going to walk you through my project, ProcureMind OS, means operating system for the whole procurement workflow, agentic procurement architecture. And this is designed for enterprise production, not a lab demo. See this procurement OS. I literally mean an operating system for procurement decisions. A system that can run sourcing, risk checks, compliance, contract intelligence, and ERP execution in a controlled way. See this agentic. And this word agentic is important. Agentic means we are not using one single chatbot. We are using a workforce of specialized agents. Specialized agents means like a sourcing agent, risk agent, compliance agent, contract agent, coordinated through an orchestrator with strong guardrails. See this one, this layered graphic. Data, intelligence, governance, and execution. This layer stack is exactly how the system is designed. Bottom layer is data and truth, ERP, contracts plus policies. Middle layer is intelligence, retrieval, knowledge graph, reasoning agents. Top layer, this is governance and execution layer, approvals, audit logs, and real actions into ERP. See, beyond the POC to enterprise production. This line is the whole point. Beyond POC, because in procurement, production means approvals, delegation of authority, audit trials, compliance checks, vendor onboarding, and safe execution. So in this walkthrough, we are not just generating recommendations. We are designing a system that can operate inside MNC controls. C. Autonomous procurement intelligence, meaning it continuously monitors risk, pricing, and supplier context and helps teams make decisions faster. And governance is the key word. The AI is powerful, but governance is what makes it deployable. I'm 𝗤𝗿𝗄𝗧 AI architect, and in the next slide, I will break down this entire architecture step by step, from the current procurement plan to the agent workflow, to evaluator guardrails, who will evaluate every steps, to human approvals like human in the loop, and finally to ERP execution and monitoring. So think of this as a deep dive from request to decision to execution with enterprise safety built in. Let's start. All right, now pause here. This slide explains the core pain in most enterprises. See, procurement operates like a reactive ticket management system. So the headline is very direct. Procurement is running like an IT ticket system. And that's a big problem because procurement decisions have thousands of hidden variables: risk, compliance, pricing, lead time, supplier reliability. But the system treats it like a basic ticket. Open, process, close. That's it. See this one. Procurement decisions involves thousands of hidden variables. This line is the reality. Procurement is not a simple workflow. It's a decision system. Now let's walk through the pipeline. Start from the left side here. Business request, then vendor search, then risk review, then negotiation, and then finally contract and finalization. Here is the standard flow. A business request comes in, procurement searches vendors, then risk review, then negotiation is going on, and then contract finalization, means finalize the contract in the last. Now watch what the orange warning signs, see this one, are telling us. These are the real bottlenecks. These you can see this. First warning: crucial market intelligence is missing at the point of decision. This means when procurement is selecting vendors, they are often doing it with incomplete visibility. No live market pricing, no supplier benchmarking, no demand supply context. So vendor selection starts with guesswork, not intelligence. See this one. Second warning: vendor risk is discovered far too late. This is huge. In real life, risk is not just one thing. It's sanctions, export controls, ESG, financial stability, delivery reliability. But in many organizations, the risk review happens only after the sourcing path is already decided. That's why rework happens and cycle time explodes. See, This risk review, you can see this is where rework starts. Now see this one, negotiation. The third warning, price benchmarking relies on manual effort. So negotiation is happening without strong data. People compare last year's PO, some Excel, maybe a vendor quote, but that's not real benchmarking. And when benchmarking is manual, negotiations become inconsistent across teams and regions. See, Excel. This is why negotiation often depend on tribal knowledge instead of a system. See this one, contract finalization. Because of contracts are unstructured PDFs and legal teams have to manually read, review, red line, check clause deviations and route approvals. So the entire procurement flow gets stuck at contract finalization. And this delay is deadly for urgent business request. So time, clock. This is the biggest time sink. Now let me summarize what this slide really says. See, all these bottlenecks, all these warning points are symptoms of one big problem. Procurement intelligence arrives too late. So ProcureMind operating system OS is designed to flip this entire model. Instead of search first, intelligence later, we do intelligence first, decision next, with market signals, risk signals, compliance checks, and contract clause intelligence brought up front. And that's exactly what I'll show you in the next slide, how procurement becomes autonomous decision intelligence rather than reactive ticket processing. Perfect. Now this slide is the vision slide. This is where we shift the audience mindset from procurement as manual work to procurement as an intelligence platform. Let me take a marker. Yeah. See, transitioning from manual transitions to an autonomous decision intelligence platform. So the goal is not to just automate a few steps. The goal is to build an autonomous decision intelligence platform that continuously supports procurement, like a system that's always on. Now look at the right side, this circular loop. This is the heart of ProcureMind OS. See, ProcureMind OS. Everything revolves around this core engine, ProcureMind OS. And the important part is this isn't not one model. It's a loop of capabilities working continuously. See this. First capability, continuously monitor supply market, meaning not once a quarter, not once a month, continuously. So if lead times change, if a commodity price spikes, if supplier capacity drops, the system knows early. See, and that feeds into the next capability here. This one, evaluate vendor risk automatically. Second capability, evaluate vendor risk automatically is the second one. This includes sections, checks, export controls, financial stability, geopolitical risks, ESG risk, and even performance risk like late deliveries. So now, instead of risk being a late stage review, risk becomes a real-time signal. See this. This is the third capability, recommended sourcing strategies. Not generic suggestions, specific strategies like use approved supplier A for speed, use supplier B for cost, or split volume between A and C to reduce risk. See, these specific strategies are what make AI actionable. Now comes to this one, fourth capability, negotiate cost benchmarks. This is where procurement gets leverage back. Instead of vendor says price is X, the system brings last buy price, category baseline, market indices, and should cost estimates. This means procurement walks into negotiation with facts, not assumptions. Now comes to this fifth capability, enforce compliance policies. This is what executives and auditors love. It means the system doesn't just recommend, it checks approved vendor list, policy thresholds, delegation of authority, contract rules, and regulatory constraints. So compliance becomes built-in, not a last-minute blocker. Now comes to this one. And this is the sixth capability, generate explainable evidence-backed decisions. This is where we win trust. Every recommendation is paired with evidence, documents, ERP history, policy references, and risk signals. So it's not AI said so. It's AI recommends this. And here is exactly why. See, instead of waiting for human input, see this. This line captures the essence of agentic AI. Instead of humans pushing every step forward manually, specialized AI agents actively manage the ecosystems. Meaning, agents don't wait. They monitor, they detect, recommend, validate, and prepare decision packets. And humans step in mainly for approvals, exceptions, and governance. So this agent, if you remember one thing from this slide, agentic AI only becomes enterprise ready when it combines with governance. And in the next slide, I'll show you exactly how we engineer that with the full life cycle, evaluators, guardrails, and human approval gates. All right, this slide is one of the most important in the entire deck because this is where we separate a POC from a production system. See this heading. A 10-stage life cycle guarantees accuracy, governance, and continuous improvement. So the key message is production AI is not a single model, not a single prompt. It's a life cycle. And this life cycle is what guarantees three things: accuracy, governance, and continuous improvement. Now look at the bottom. It's like a pipeline or a train with 10 compartments. See, this is the full path from the moment a request is created until the model improves over time. Let's walk through it quickly, but in a way that makes sense for enterprise. This is the stage 1. Stage 1 is procurement request intake. This is where the system captures the business need. What item, quantity, delivery date, location, budget, and constraints. Because if intake is wrong, everything downstream becomes wrong. Comes to stage 2. Stage 2 is data ingestion. This is where we connect ERP, vendor master, spend history, contracts, policies, invoices, all the structured and unstructured data. Let's come to step 3. Stage 3 is knowledge graph construction. This is where we build relationships like vendor, region, regulation, supplier, contract, clause, category, approved suppliers. This is what makes procurement context aware. Now comes to stage 4. Stage 4 is retrieval intelligence. This is where we bring evidence into the system before the agent reasons using contextual retrieval and self-reflective retrievals. This is how we reduce hallucinations and make decisions evidence-backed. Now move to stage 5. Stage 5 is agent reasoning. This is where our specialized agents work. Sourcing, risk, compliance, pricing, negotiation, contract intelligence. They don't guess. They act using retrieved context and tools. So now comes to the stage 6 and 7 combined. I will let you know. Now this is the heart of enterprise trust, the governance checkpoint. This one, stage 6, is evaluator and guardrails. This is where we validate evidence coverage, policy compliance, fairness, security, filters, and trigger repairs if needed. Now this is the seventh stage, human in the loop validation, meaning high risk decisions must be approved by procurement managers, finance, legal, compliance based on routing rules. See, this governance checkpoint. This is where POCs usually fail. They jump from stage 5 straight to execution. But in real enterprises, this stage 6 and 7 are non-negotiable. Now comes to stage 8. Stage 8 is execution. This is where we create PR, PO, trigger onboarding, send RFQ, update ERP, but only after governance passes. Now moves to stage 9. This is the monitoring and observability stage. We track system latency, cost, success rate, decision quality, and business KPIs, life cycle time, and savings. Business KPIs like cycle time and savings, all we need to consider. Now comes to stage 10. Stage 10 is continuous learning. Procurement is dynamic. Markets change, suppliers change, regulations change. So the system must learn from the drift and human feedback and improvement over time. So final takeaway for this. So if you remember one thing from this slide, it must be a POC usually focuses only on retrieval and agents, but production requires the full 10-stage life cycle, especially governance, execution, and monitoring. And in the next slide, we are going to deep dive into how we unify structured, unstructured data to feed this whole life cycle. All right, now we are entering the part that makes this architecture real. Because agentic AI is only as good as the data it can reliably access. See, the pipeline initiated by unifying procurement request with the structured and unstructured enterprise data. So the first principle of ProcureMind OS is unify the request with enterprise truth, both structured and unstructured. Now start on the left side. See this one. Everyone begins with the request intake. Here is the request is 500 industrial sensors. Timeline 30 days. And that's the hard constraint. And the requirement ISO certified vendor. That's a compliance constraint. Now here is the key point. In most companies, the request comes in and human manually start collecting context. ProcureMind OS does the opposite of it. It immediately enriches the request using enterprise data. See, procurement portal, ERP system, API. Request can come from a portal, directly from ERP, or through an API, meaning it can integrate with ServiceNow, Jira, internal apps, anything. Now shift your attention to the middle of the slide, this one. This is the structured enterprise data. See, ERP purchase orders. This tells us last buy price, supplier used, quantity patterns, lead times. Vendor metrics, delivery performance, defect rate, on-time score, SLA adherence. Financial reports, credit signals, payment behavior, spend concentration risk. Now here comes the part the most procurement system struggle with. This one, unstructured data. Now comes to this one, contracts, where the real risk is hiding. Clauses, penalties, renewal terms, liability. Now this is proposals. It quotes documents, terms, delivery promises, assumptions. And now the last one, regulatory documents, policies, export restrictions, compliance requirements, industry standards. Now here is the core message of this slide. This structured and unstructured data to form full context. We need both structured and unstructured data, because if we only use ERP tables, we miss contracts and policy constraints. And if we only use documents, we miss spend history, and supplier performance. Now look at the right side. See this one, Kafka, Kinesis, Airflow. This is the ingestion pipeline layer. Streaming plus batch workflows. Everything flows into the enterprise data lake here. And why do we push everything into the lake? Because this becomes the single foundation for the next steps: retrieval, knowledge graph, and agent decisioning. Now I'll say the line that makes the enterprise grade, that makes this enterprise grade version. This is the single source of truth. Governance and underlying governance. See this one. This is the single source of truth, and it's where governance begins: access control, lineage, auditability, and consistency. So to summarize, request comes in, system enriches it using structured plus unstructured data. Everything lands in the enterprise data lake, and then we build intelligence on top of it. And in the next slide, I'll show you how we convert this unified data into something much more powerful: a contextual knowledge graph that exposes hidden relationships like vendor, region, regulations. Now comes to this one, where procurement mind operating system starts to look like a real enterprise intelligence system. Because this is where we move beyond keyword search. Contextual knowledge graphs replace flat keyword searches. So the core idea is simple. Keyword search is flat, but procurement reality is rational. Procurement decisions depend on relationships between vendors, contracts, locations, policies, and product categories. See, ProcureMind builds a dynamic web modeling. Relationships between vendors, contracts, graphic locations, compliance rules, and product categories. This is what a knowledge graph gives us: a dynamic web of relationships that a normal search engine cannot understand. Now look at the diagram on the right side. See here. I'll explain it like a real procurement decision. See, we'll start with vendor A. Vendor A supplies industrial sensors. Now in normal procurement workflows, at this point, people would already start negotiating price. But the knowledge graph forces a better question: where is this supplier operating from? See, vendor A is located in Taiwan. So now location becomes part of the procurement context automatically. And now comes the real magic. Compliance and risk are no longer separate steps. They are embedded into the graph. See, Taiwan is subject to export regulation 14B. That means before we even approve a vendor, we already know there is a regulatory constraint that could block shipment, delay clearance, or require approvals. Now pause and think about how powerful this is. In old procurement, risk is discovered late. In ProcMind OS, risk is discovered early because it's encoded into the relationship map. Now look at the bottom statement. This is the takeaway. This relationship map becomes the foundation for highly contextual, risk-aware retrieval. Meaning, when the AI retrieves documents, it doesn't just retrieve vendor A sponsors PDF. It retrieves vendor A plus sensor category plus Taiwan plus export regulation plus contact contract clauses all together. That is what makes retrieval enterprise grade. Context plus relationships plus risk awareness. Now, one important line for the tech audience. See, this one and for AWS Neptune. This is implemented with graph tech like Neo4j or AWS or Neptune, depending on your enterprise stake. So to summarize this slide in one sentence, the knowledge graph becomes the procurement brain. It connects what the enterprise already knows, so the AI can reason safely. And in the next slide, I'll show you how we combine this graph context with vector retrieval using dual retrieval strategies. So we get both semantic understanding and structured governance. All right, now comes to this slide where we directly attack the biggest enterprise fear with GenAI, hallucinations. This dual retrieval strategies establish enterprise context and eliminate hallucinations. So the promise is clear. We need retrieval strategies that ground the model in enterprise truth and also self-check completeness before it speaks. Now notice we have two strategies. This is intentional because one retrieval step is not enough in the enterprise procurement. See, strategy 1, CRAG, contextual retrieval. See this one. Strategy 1 is CRAG. I told you, contextual retrieval. This is rooted deeply in the enterprise knowledge graph. Meaning when a request comes in, the system doesn't just retrieve random documents. It retrieves context based on relationships, supplier, category, reason, contracts, and the policies. Comes here. This line is important because grounding is what reduces hallucination risk. Now look at what it retrieves. See, vendor relationships, contract clauses, supplier history, and SLAs. These three alone solve a huge problem of procurement chaos. Because now the AI knows who supplies what the contract terms are, and how that supplier performed historically. See, you can see this one. Evidence. So CRAG gives us evidence-backed context. And comes to strategy 2, self-rag. See. Now let's go to the right side, and this is the intelligence layer that makes this system even more reliable. This self-rag Strategies. This one is the key question. This is the key question. Am I using context? See. So instead of assuming retrieval is complete, the model actively evaluates its own retrieval before generating a final answer. See, this means it checks, do I enough information to recommend a vendor? Do I have the contract clauses? Do I have risk signals? Do I have pricing benchmarks? And if not, it does something very important. See, if information is incomplete, it triggers additional search. It queries alternative resources and it expands the knowledge context. So self-reg acts like a safety behavior. It prevents the model from answering confidently with partial evidence. See that loop, you can see this one. That loop is what makes enterprise retrieval strong. Final takeaway, why dual retrieval matters. Here is the most important takeaway. Dual retrieval equals to trust. Because procurement is high stakes. Wrong recommendation can mean compliance violations, contract risk, or financial leakage. Now look at the bottom, this infrastructure line. Vector database, this an enterprise knowledge graph. This is the foundation. Vector databases plus enterprise knowledge graph. So to summarize in one line, self-reg means completeness check, and C-reg gives grounded context, self-reg checks completeness, and together they reduce hallucinations and make the system safe enough to move into agent execution, which is exactly what we will see next when we move into orchestration and the agent workflow. Now we are entering the agentic core of ProcureMind OS. This slide explains something that most people miss when they build agents. Control. A deterministic length graph orchestrator manages a specialized agent workforce. The key word here is deterministic. This because in procurement we cannot have free roaming agents doing random actions. We need a controlled workflow with traceability, approvals, and predictable acquisition. Because predictable execution is very important. So now let's start from the top. Okay. See this one, orchestrator, the controller. This is the brain that manages the workflow. The orchestrator does three important things. It manages execution state. It enforces step-by-step traceability. And it routes tasks to the right agent at the right time. This is the reason we use an orchestrator. So agents behave like nodes in a controlled graph, not like independent bots. This is the main enterprise message. Controlled graph, not free agent. See. MCP execution bus. standardized tool access. Now look at the long bar in the middle. See this one. This is the execution bus. Think of it as the highway that connects agents to tools and enterprise systems. And this is the important because it creates standardization. Agents don't directly hit ERP or vendor systems randomly. They go through a controlled interface. See here, this lock represents governance. Here, tools calls are logged, validated, and controllable. Now look at these 5 boxes at the bottom. These one. Instead of one mega agent doing everything, we split responsibilities like a real procurement team. Now we go one by one. This is sourcing agent. The sourcing agent handles market analysis and supply delivery. This means approved suppliers, alternates, lead times, capacity, substitution options. It answers who can supply this fast and reliably. Now comes to this one, vendor risk agent. The risk agent runs scoring, financial stability, geopolitical risk, sanctions exposure, delivery performance. So risk score, see, this is where we quantify risk not as opinions but as scores with evidence. Now comes to compliance agent. The compliance agent validates procurement policies and regulatory constraints, meaning approved vendor list, ISO certification checks, export controls, region restrictions, internal policy threads. See, policy checks. So compliance become a gate, not a last minute surprise. Now comes to negotiation agent. The negotiation agent builds leverage, price benchmarking, and supplier leverage modeling. It pulls last buy price, contract rates, market indices, and should cost reasoning. So negotiation becomes data driven, not guess driven. Now comes to the last one, contract agent. The contract agent extracts legal clauses and supports redlining. This is one of the biggest ROI areas because contract review is where time dies in procurement. So if it flags risky clauses, missing terms, and deviations from the standards. Now let me summarize what this slide is really saying. See, MCP bus, we are saying this one, orchestration. So orchestrator controls workflow, execution bus controls tool access, agents do specialized work. All these 3 are doing their own task. This is why ProcureMind OS is production ready. You get modularity, traceability, governance, and the ability to scale. And in the next slide, I will add the most important safety system of all, the evaluator and the guardrails layer, the gate that prevents wrong decisions from reaching ERP. All right. This slide is the enterprise trust layer. If you want a CTO, VP, or head of procurement to take this seriously, this is the slide that wins them. An independent evaluator agent enforces strict enterprise guardrails before execution. So the key phrase is independent evaluator. This one. Meaning the same agent that generates a recommendation should not be the one that approves itself. We need a separate evaluation layer. Just like a real companies, we have checks and balances. Now follow the flag from left to right. See, like this. This AI output. So first, the AI produces an output, maybe a supplier recommendation, a negotiation plan, or a contact red line suggestion. But here is the rule. No output goes to ERP or approvals until it passes evaluation. No passes equals to no execution. That's the production mindset. See, this one. Evaluator agent. Now look at the center box. Here, this one. This is the gatekeeper, and it checks three big things: reasoning, traceability. This one. Reasoning trace quality. Is the recommendation logically consistent? Did it follow the correct procurement policy logic? Did it use the right supplier constraints and context? Even if the answer sounds good, bad reasoning is dangerous in enterprise systems. Now comes to second one, hallucination detection using evidence coverage. This means the evaluator asks, show me the proof. If the AI says vendor A is ISO certified, the evaluator must see the certificate evidence. If it says price is within market, it must show benchmark evidence. If it says no export restriction, it must show compliance evidence. Proof. Proof is the main thing. This is how you beat hallucinations. Force evidence. Now comes to this checks for bias. Bias checks supplier fairness. This matters in enterprise procurement because supplier selection must be defensible. If a supplier is rejected, the reason must be valid. Risk, cost, compliance, performance, not random bias. Now this one comes to this one, runtime guardrail. Now look at this bottom box. Yeah. These are hard controls, budget limits, financial thresholds, and sensitive data redaction like PII, PHI. So even if an agent tries to do something outside policy, the guardrail blocks it. Like policy gate. It's a policy gate. So this lock means no policy violation can pass. Now comes to pass versus fail path. So this one, pass versus fail. Yeah. If it passes, it proceeds to human approval. Here. That means the human sees a decision card with an audit packet, not just a random AI response. Now comes to fail path. If it fails, we do not move forward, we go backward. We go again in the back. This is where the repair loop comes in. So here, this is the repair loop. The repair loop automatically triggers self-reg and regenerates reasoning. Meaning, if evidence is missing, it retrieves more. If context is incomplete, it expands context. Then it generates again and rechecks. So That loop is what makes the system safe enough for enterprise. Now here is the big takeaway for this slide. The evaluator is enterprise safety. This is why ProcureMind OS is not a POC, because in a POC you generate outputs. In production system, you validate, guardrail and control before anything touches approvals or ERP. And in the next slide, we will see what happens after the evaluator passes. The system moves into the human approval gateway, where procurement leadership remains in control. This slide is the one that procurement leaders, legal teams, finance controllers, and auditors care about the most, because it answers the big question: who has the authority? Human in the loop oversight ensures AI supports rather than replaces human authority. So the message is clear: AI supports decisions, it does not replace human authority. Now look at the line below the title. This one, approval gate. This is the approval gate. Any high impact decision like contract above $1 million or procurement in high risk region, hit a hard stop for review. This is what makes the system deployable in real enterprises. Because procurement is not just purchasing, it's financial exposure and compliance exposure. Now let's move to the big card in the center. So this one. This is the recommendation output. But notice, it's not just one sentence. It's a decision card designed for fast executive review. Now look at the middle packet. This one. This middle section, yeah. This is the most important part, the explainable audit packet. Because enterprises don't approve AI output. They approve evidence plus policy plus alignment plus risk clarity. Now we go left to right inside the audit packet. This one, left to right, this one. Here we have a risk score, 12% low, and see, it tells leadership what is the quantified risk level and why. See, this one, verified financial stability, meaning risk is not a guess, it's a evidence backed. Comes to this one, price benchmark. See, yeah, this tells finance and procurement, are we paying above market, below market, or within range? And now procurement has leverage because it can defend pricing with data. Now comes to this one, evidence sources. This is huge. Direct links back to ERP records and contracts. This means if a director asks, why did we select vendor A? You can click and show contract clauses, PO history, vendor performance, policy checks, all traceable, all audit ready. That's the audit readiness. Now look at the bottom, buttons at the bottom. See, this is the governance in action. See, approve decision, this button. Approve means the human accepts accountability and we proceed to enterprise execution. This one, request revision. It means the AI needs to rerun, maybe new suppliers, new constraints, more evidence. Comes to this one, reject, this button. Reject means stop this path completely. Now here is the key enterprise points. See, AI does 80 to 90% of the heavy lifting. Retrieval, benchmarking, risk checks, policy checks, but humans make the final call on high impact decisions. And this is what makes ProcureMind OS scalable. It reduces manual work massively without breaking governance. Now in the next slide, we will see what happens after approval, how the system moves into enterprise execution, creates PRPO, triggers onboarding, sends RFQs, and updates ERP with audit logs. Now we are crossing the line from intelligence to execution. This is the slide that proves ProcureMind OS is not just generating recommendations, it's actually acting inside the enterprise. Approved decisions automatically execute across enterprise ERP and the supply chain systems. So once a decision is approved, the system can execute actions automatically, safely across ERP and supply chain systems. Now start on the left here. Human approval granted. This check mark is the hard gate, meaning no approval, no execution. This is exactly how we keep governance intact. AI can recommend, but humans still control high impact actions. Approval equals to permission. It means approval equal permission to act. So now follow the arrow into the center. See this one. Enterprise execution layer. This is the execution engine. Think of it like a secure automation layer that knows how to talk to SAP, Oracle, Ariba, Coupa, and other supply chain systems using controlled API. So here is like this is a lock. That locks represents secure execution, authentication, authorization, logging, and idempotency. Now from here, the system fans out into multiple real-world actions. Action 1, this create purchase order. First action, this create purchase order where procurement becomes real because the PO is the transaction that triggers supply. See this PR equals to PO. This is the standard flow, PR to PO. Now comes to second one, issue vendor contract. This one. This can trigger the CLM workflow, generate draft, route approvals, apply standard clauses, send for e-signature. So legal processes don't stay trapped in the email chains. They become structured. CLM equals to e-sign. Now comes to this one, onboard supplier. This is the third action. This is critical for MNC scale because onboarding requires KYC, tax details, bank verification, certificates like ISO, and the system can trigger and track that workflow automatically. KYC and plus certificates. That's the main thing. Now comes to this schedule, delivery, and update inventory. Scheduling, delivery, and updating inventory. This is where procurement connects to operations. So supply chain teams see the impact in real time. That's a supply chain visibility, we say. See here, secure API. You can see this one. This secure API hands off. This is exactly how this becomes deployable. The system integrates with enterprise procurement modules safely. And now look at the bottom line. This is the strongest statement on this slide. See here. This is the difference between AI dashboards and AI products. A dashboard gives recommendations. A product actually executes, but only through approvals, guardrails, and audit logs. Agentic AI equals to decision plus action. That's the main thing. Agentic AI is decision plus action. Now in the next slide, we will cover what happens after execution, how the system stays reliable, monitoring, drift detection, cost tracking, and retraining pipelines. Yeah, this slide is what makes ProcureMind OS survive in real enterprise life. Because the procurement world is not static. Markets change, supplier performance changes, price change, and the regulations change. Continuous observability and drift detection power automated retraining pipelines. So the key message is once you deploy, you don't stop. You need continuous observability plus drift plus detection plus retraining. Otherwise, the system becomes confidently outdated. Now look at this circle loop. It's a closed feedback cycle. See, oh, this is closed loop system. Let's go step by step. System observability, this one. This is where we track real-time health of the agent system. Latency, cost, throughput, and model accuracy. See, cost, latency, model accuracy. That means if inference latency increases, if token cost spikes, or if output quality drops, we see it immediately. Prometheus and Grafana. And we use standard tools, these like Prometheus and Grafana, because enterprises already trust them. This is the SRE for AI. Think of this as SRE for AI system. Now comes to this one, data drift detection. Second point, this one. This is the second stage where most AI systems fail if they don't monitor drift. Procurement is a live environment. If commodity prices change, if lead times shift, if supplier reliability degrades, the model's assumptions can break. So the market actively monitors market shifts and supplier behaviors. Market moves, so the model must adapt. Now drift detection is not just analytics. Drift detection triggers the next step. Now comes to this ML retraining pipeline. This one. This is the third one. This means the system doesn't wait for someone to say AI is wrong. It learns continuously from outcomes. See, it captures human in the loop feedback, approvals, revision, rejections, and edits. That feedbacks become training signal. See, this SageMaker, Q-Flow, and retraining is automated using pipelines like I told you, SageMaker or Q-Flow, depending on your cloud stack. That's a human feedback equals to training data and underline these. All these I have already did. All that's why I call you human feedback becomes training data. Now here is the single most important takeaway of this slide. See, deploy, monitor, improve. A production AI system is deploy, monitor, improve. Without this loop, see this one. Yeah. Your procurement AI becomes a one-time demo. With this loop, ProcureMind OS becomes a long-term operating system that improves over time. And in the next slide, we will go one layer deeper into infrastructure, how we achieve real-time performance, low latency, and scalable deployment across cloud stacks. Yes, this slide is also about something people underestimate in AI systems, latency. Because in procurement, if the system is slow, users don't wait. They bypass it and go back to email and Excel. Low latency infrastructure guarantees real-time agent decisions under 500 milliseconds. So the goal is real-time decisioning, and the target here is under 500 milliseconds per agent decision. Now look at the center box. This one. Target latency. This number is not just engineering pride. This 500, you see 500 ms. This is what makes the system feel like a real product inside an enterprise workflow. If a sourcing agent takes 10 seconds, then a risk agent takes 10 seconds, and then compliance agent takes 10 seconds. Procurement teams will stop using it. So we design the system so each agent decision stays under 500 milliseconds. Fast enough to support real business flow. It's like speed equals to adoption. Speed equals to adoption, I must say. Now let's break down how we achieve this using 3-layer stack on the right. See this 3-layer stack. First, this is the application layer. Here, microservices and graph routing. This application layer is where workflow lives. Microservices and graph routing. This is the orchestrator layer. It routes tasks to the right agent quickly, manages state, and handles concurrency. It's a fast routing. Next, come to the inference layer. This one. Yeah, this. The inference layer is where AI runs. Containerized GPU servers plus vector databases. See, vector databases and all. This is where we optimize model serving, caching, fast retrieval, batch request, because retrieval time plus inference time is the main latency driver. That's why I call if inference plus retrieval. Now comes to cloud computing base, this one, the last one. The cloud computing base gives scalability and reliability. When load increases, more requests, more reasons, more teams, the system scales horizontally without breaking latency. Scale out. It's really scale out. Now cloud choices, Azure or AWS or maybe other clouds. Now look at the left side here. This is the important for enterprise adoption because companies already have cloud preferences. Maybe Azure stack, like on Azure we can run Azure OpenAI, Azure ML, AKS. See all this. So if the company is Microsoft ecosystem heavy, this fits naturally. On AWS, this one we can run Amazon Bedrock, SageMaker, EKS. So this is AWS side, or maybe other cloud services. If the company is AWS first, this fits naturally to. So ProcureMind OS is cloud flexible. The architecture is the same, only the managed services change. Now here is the main takeaway of the slide. Low latency is what makes agentic procurement usable. If procurement teams can ask the system and get results instantly, they will use it. If it's slow, they will bypass it. So this infrastructure stack ensures fast decisions, scalable execution, and enterprise grade reliability. And in the next slide, we will cover the final piece of enterprise readiness: security, access control, ethical safeguards, and auditability. Because without that, no enterprise will allow AI to operate in procurement. Yeah, this is the slide we call enterprise credibility slide. Because even if your AI is brilliant, no MNC will deploy it unless security, ethics, and auditability are built in from day one. Strict access controls and ethical safeguards ensure transparent, accountable AI. So the goal here is simple: transparent and accountable AI, not black box automation. Now the slide is structured into 4 pillars. I'll go left to right. First, identity access, this one. See, first pillar, identity access. This means authentication and authorization are enterprise grade. SSO, OAuth plus role-based access control. So a category manager can only access their category data. See all this. A buyer can only access their region's supplier. And we also support strict tenant isolation if the company has multiple business units. See this one, isolation. Tenant isolation means one business unit cannot see another unit's procurement data. This rate limit. Protect the system from abuse and keep performance stable. Now comes to second, data security. Data is encrypted in transit and at rest. Standard enterprise requirement. Now the most important phrase here is this: policy aware. See, this is policy aware retrieval filter. Policy aware retrieval filters. This means even if the model could retrieve a document, it will not retrieve it unless the user has permission. So RAG becomes safe, no data leakage, no cross team exposure. This is the RAG with permissions. Now comes to ethical AI controls, this one. Third pillar, ethical AI controls. We actively monitor supplier discrimination risk. See, regional bias. We monitor regional biases. And we monitor unfair contracts recommendations. Why does this matter? Because procurement decisions affect vendor ecosystems, and in enterprise procurement, decisions must be defensible and fair. Fair selection logic, I must say. So fairness becomes a control, not a slogan. Now the last one, auditability. Immutable audit logs, meaning logs that cannot be edited after the fact. Now this part is key. We capture the full deterministic chain. So if an auditor asks, why did you choose a vendor A? We can show the inputs. What was retrieved, which tools were called, what output was generated, and who approved it. See, all this. This is audit ready by design. Now the takeaway of this slide is these 4 pillars from the enterprise trust, this one, this one, this one, and this one, all these 4 layers, without identity, security, ethics, and auditability, Procurement AI stays a pilot. With these controls, ProcureMind OS becomes deployable across real MNC environments. And in the next slide, we will wrap up with the business impact, how this architecture moves procurement from manual transition management to autonomous strategic intelligence. Yeah, this is the closing impact slide, the slide that connects all the architecture we discussed to real business value. Agentic architectures transition enterprise AI from research to production. So the headline is powerful. Agentic architecture is what takes enterprise AI from research and pilots into production reality. Because research AI is, look what I can generate. Production AI is, look what I can run safely inside ERP, policy, approvals, and audit. Now look at the sentence under the title, this one. ProcureMind fundamentally transfer procurement from manual transition management into autonomous strategic intelligence. ProcureMind OS fundamentally transfers procurement from manual transition management to autonomous strategic intelligence. This is the real shift. Procurement stops being a ticket processing function and it becomes an intelligence function. Now look at the left gray box, this one. See, this procurement today in most companies, lots of emails, spreadsheets, manual vendor comparisons, slow approvals, late risk detections, and contract cycles that drag on. See, manual transition management, manual and reactive. Now shift to the right box, blue box. This is the after state. See this one, the after state autonomous strategic intelligence. This is what ProcureMind OS delivers, autonomous strategic intelligence. Now I will walk through these bullets one by one because these are your business outcomes. Faster supplier decisions. See this one, first one. Dramatically faster supplier decisions because agents do sourcing, risk checks, pricing, benchmarks, and clause scanning in parallel instead of humans doing it sequentially. Like weeks into days into hours. This is where cycle time collapses. Now this one, second one, proactive reduction of risk. Risk signals are detected early, before onboarding, before contracting, before PO execution. So instead of discovering risk at the end, the system surfaces risk at the start. It's like risk early equals to less rework. That's what saves time and protects the business. Now comes to this one, third point, improved negotiation leverages. Because procurement walks into negotiation with benchmarks, last buy, market signals, should cost reasoning, and alternate supplier options. That's how you negotiate from power, not from urgency. That's a benchmark goes to leverage. Now comes to this one, transparency and traceability. This one is the last one. So this matters for auditors, for leadership, and for compliance teams. Every decision has an evidence trail. What data was retrieved, which tools were used, what policies were checked, and who approved it. It's like evidence plus audit trail. This is what makes it enterprise safe. Now look at the bottom line. See this one. This is your final positioning statement. Procurement Mind OS is a governable agent-based platform that can operate safely at enterprise scale. Because governance is what makes AI deployable in top companies. And in the final slide, I will show the references and tools used, including notebook LM, research papers, and the design patterns behind this architecture. So anyone can validate the system and take it further. Thank you.